Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Most of you know me. I'm Whitney Smith-Schuler. If you don't, or I just met Matt, so there's a reminder. So I have to start out with something totally off topic, which may not be appropriate because Robin's filming me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm looking at David's shirt. My daughter, who's 12, came home from the mall the other day. This is when I would set up. My kids are school shopping without me, and it's really scary. And she came home with a Rolling Stones t-shirt, and I'm like, she's like, do you like this, Mom? And I said, yeah, I love it. I had no idea you knew who the Rolling Stones are. She said, I have no idea who they are. I just thought the shirt was cute. So we have some like musical lessons forthcoming in our home, so she doesn't totally embarrass herself when she wears it to school the first day. But anyway, education. So I hope that, so with reference to that, we hope that this gives you a little bit of satisfaction, right? Okay.
Very nice.
All right. So I just wanted to talk about or sort of introduce Tiffany's signature assignment demonstration in reference a little bit to the Gen Ed program assessment. And I thought that this would be especially useful to do after the presentation on Tuesday. I don't know if you were all there or not.
So sorry, I've seen this one before.
Did you go?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were so great you came back for a second time. That's just fine. And I think one of the things that, I mean, I know that my faculty struggle with a little bit, and then maybe it's somewhat difficult to sometimes keep in mind, are how many different sort of masters our outcomes in our courses serve. And I think that can tend to complicate things. And we feel, the Gen Ed Review Committee feels, that that was one of the issues when we did our first round of assessment, is that a lot of the assignments that were submitted were not clearly supporting our Gen Ed program outcomes. And so we felt that the signature assignment was a way to have faculty keep in mind those outcomes. And so just to demonstrate, and I know that you guys all know this, but it helps me to see it visually. We all have our individual course outcomes, and as Tiffany actually said this in the last presentation that we did on Wednesday, I think we're all pretty comfortable with doing assessment for those course outcomes. I mean, we're dialed in, that's our discipline, and we know that, and we've assessed for those a long time. We also have State of Idaho Gen Ed outcomes. And these were developed a few years ago by the discipline committees within the state. So we all have those, and our courses are all supposed to be supporting those as well. And then a couple of years ago, we developed general education program goals, and those are yet a third. Oh boy. This is not a very dark marker. So our courses, and I'm leaving off program goals, so like in your, like in your communication program, they kind of sit out here. Your course probably might also serve to support a program goal. And so sometimes in our courses, we have 4 different sets of outcomes to worry about somehow supporting and somehow assessing. And so, again, what we found when we did our first round of reading is
Could
that
you
we
read
felt
that
like,
one?
Pardon me?
Could you read them as you?
Sure. So again, our individual course outcomes, State of Idaho general education outcomes if it's a general education course in a way of knowing or integrative skill, and then CSI general education program goals, think, communicate, connect, and be well. So again, we felt that a more purposeful approach to assignment design would probably better serve supporting these goals here. And I don't mean like, they're not really hierarchical. I guess they're all equally important. I shouldn't have put them in a line like this. But with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany, and she can talk, her part's awesome, about how to create a signature assignment.
Did you want to show that?
Oh, yeah, we went through all of that, and then I forgot to even do it.
I'm just impressed. The only reason I wanted her to show that is because we knew how to use Teams this
Yeah, we
morning.
did.
And I'm just so excited that I wanted to do
Yeah.
it. Like, that's really the whole thing.
Shout out
That's
to
it.
Kevin and his.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's the highlight. Drop the mic, ready to go. Yeah, that's it.
But I think it is important to show the rubric that when we developed the rubric for our general education program goals, we did it really purposely because we looked at the state of Idaho general education outcomes in the ways of knowing and integrative skills. And we tried again very purposely to funnel those up into the development of our rubric. So there is a connection. And I don't think faculty in general are very familiar with that. So that's another positive thing about inviting faculty to read. You'll have that in front of you and know what those are.
And then student learning outcomes, where do those go?
The course outcomes,
Is the student learning outcome?
yeah, right there. Great question, Evan.
All right, so we came to this idea about signature assignments from a conference that actually Whitney and I and a couple other people were at this summer. And so the language of signature assignments is borrowed from Salt Lake City Community College, and they have a really extensive program of gen ed assessment. They use portfolios a lot, and as a way to populate those portfolios, they use what they call a signature assignment, and we borrowed their terminology because we liked it. So that's where that comes from. What do we mean by signature assignment? So signature assignments do some specific things, and the first thing that they do is they exist to evaluate and assess the general education outcome that is attached to the course. So we all do all sorts of assignments that measure these outcomes. We do assignments that measure these outcomes, but signature assignments are designed with the gen ed outcomes in mind. So that's one real area that, as Whitney said, when we evaluated the first round of gen ed portfolios, that was really difficult for us because we were evaluating with those gen ed outcomes in mind, and we felt like people were writing assignments with course outcomes in mind, which is awesome. It just didn't give us the information that we necessarily needed to be able to effectively assess those portfolios. So the first thing a signature assignment does is look at the gen ed outcome as its primary focus. Yes, sir.
So I've had this question since Whitney's presentation on Tuesday.
Yep.
The gen ed outcomes that are set forward in that rubric seem to be for all gen ed classes, but like oral communication way of knowing gen ed class, right, on the state level, would only meet a portion of that. So my question is to say, do the assignments that I create for Com 101 have to cover all of that rubric?
No. For what we're talking about, I'm going to go back to Whitney's rubric, and then she can answer the question. I'll give her the visual aid. Maybe. See, I only know how to get to it once. Okay, there we go. All right, so, Whitney, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll stand up here so
What's
it's
the
easier.
fourth one?
So Annie, can you just clarify for me what you're asking?
So
Are you
on Tuesday, when we received this list of rubrics, it was the first time I had seen it, and I thought, well, this is great. Now I know what I'm shooting for. But when I saw it, I thought to myself, now, do my assignments, the assignment that I submitted from my classes, do they have to meet all of these?
So all of think, communicate, connect, and be well?
Right.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. No,
Okay.
it does not. Your class, your oral comm class,
Right.
fits in communicate,
Okay.
okay? So communicate covers written communication and oral communication. Think covers mathematical, scientific, social and behavioral, and humanistic and artistic ways of knowing. So does that make sense?
It does,
Okay.
and my interpretation from the results that you presented on Tuesday was that the discrepancy in the results that you found in the assignments that weren't meeting the rubric were because they didn't meet all 5 categories of the rubric instead of just the 1 category.
No, so what we found was that, for instance, and I'll choose oral comm because that's what I would know. If I was looking at an outline, let's say, and we looked at lots and lots of outlines, I could tell by looking at that outline that, oh, chapter 11, like this does chapter 11, this has chapter 11 cold. But I had no way of looking at that outline and understanding if a student demonstrates complex awareness of a rhetorical situation.
Right.
There was absolutely no way for me to look at that and then answer this question. I guess I could kind of say, well, there's sort of a motivational link here, so on and so forth. But again, I was entirely dependent upon discipline-specific knowledge, and it was connected to discipline-specific approach. Whereas if Whitney looks at it, without the discipline-specific information, she's like, I don't know if it demonstrates the complex awareness of a rhetorical situation or not. So that's the part that we kind of felt like.
So, and then, yeah, so back to today, then what you're saying
Right.
is, the goal of signature assignments is to create your discipline-specific assignment that meets your specific line from the rubric,
Exactly.
not the whole rubric.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Makes
I appreciate
sense?
the clarification.
Those are great clarifications.
So before Tiffany continues,
Yeah.
since we are hopefully reaching a larger audience, I just want to finish explaining the rubric that the NED 101, which is our institutionally designated, one of our institutionally designated courses, meets Connect, and any of the wellness courses will meet the Be Well. So
Thank you.
that's how we cover all.
Okay. So then when we look at those portfolios as a complete program, we should see everything covered, right? Okay, so that is what we're looking at in terms of signature assignments. We're going to start with the general education outcome. It has to be something that is not a test or a quiz. So that's also just sort of bright line. We all write tests, we all write quizzes. They serve amazing purposes, but they don't serve this purpose. So signature assignment should be something beyond that. So that is a key component as well, that we are looking at assignments that will go beyond just your traditional test or your traditional quiz. And then it has a reflection element. So there should be some mechanism for students to reflect back on that assignment, either the product or the process, or ideally both, and say, what did I learn? What went well? What didn't go well? What did I take away from it? Engaging sort of those metacognitive ideas that I think are sometimes lacking in assignments for good reason, but for a signature assignment, that's what we're looking for. A couple other items that I'll just focus on one of these. Obviously, clear assignment sheets, obviously clear rubrics, but I think the last bullet here is my favorite. They need to be cool. Like, they just need to be cool, right? They need to be the kind of assignment that you go home at Thanksgiving and you're like, you'll never guess what I did. This is so awesome, right? No one in the history of humanity has ever gone home for Thanksgiving and said, I took this multiple choice test. It was awesome, right? That has never, ever happened. So these need to be assignments that students connect with a degree of cool, right? So they connect with the fact that this is an engaging process that meant something to me, that had some sort of connection to my life, that I can sort of hold up as a conversation piece. I can be proud of at the end of this, right? So those are sort of the characteristics of signature assignments. And I have for you a bit of an activity in terms of just thinking about how to go about creating a signature assignment. This is also an activity that we did at the workshop we were at this summer. And so in terms of process, and I think it is important to do activities like this to sort of stretch yourself outside of your content, because that helps you separate yourself from your course objectives, right? We all sort of default back to what we love, and there's something obviously wrong with that, but it's important to kind of make your brain kind of stretch outside that. So, in terms of practicing a signature assignment, you first need to get yourself some dice, right? Dice are cool. I think everyone should have dice in their office. I think they serve several purposes. Just having a bad day, you can imagine you're at jackpot. You can just kind of throw them on your desk, and all of a sudden things just seem better, right? You can just entertain yourself with dice. But beyond that, dice provide you a beautiful way to just sort of give you random experiences, right? So I'm a big fan of dice. I have several cups of them sitting on my desk. So take some dice, throw it, and have those dice determine for you which general education outcome that you are going to assess. Now, as Andy just helped us articulate, that's already decided for you in the real world of this assessment, because depending on what course you teach, it is in a particular area. So you already have yours, but it's a great experience just to pick one. Like if I just had to pick a random outcome, what would I do? So there's your first roll of the dice. Your second roll of the dice is going to pick a class. And in terms of this activity, I just picked 6 random gen ed classes that kind of covered the spectrum. Again, throw your dice and decide which course you're going to create an assignment that assesses. Now that's an important idea because it really helps you create something that is outside of that content area, right? I mean, if I throw a dice for Com 101, then I just like default back to wanting to talk about chapter 3, because I like chapter 3. But if I throw one for Survey of World Mythology, I know enough about mythology to be a little bit dangerous, so I have enough content to start, but what I really have to focus on is the general education learning outcome. Like in order to create that assignment, I really have to focus on using multiple approaches and terminologies to discuss, analyze, solve, interpret, and create, right? That forces me to do that. So you're rolling your dice to get your second element, then you turn your paper over, and you roll it again. And your third roll is going to give you a modality. So again, forcing yourself to think outside of a test or a quiz. Roll your dice and it's going to give you some sort of modality. It's going to give you digital. It's going to give you group. It's going to give you some way that we create assignments that is not just the traditional test that you might take. So with those things in mind, then create your assignment, right? Then decide, how would I create an assignment that assessed this particular situation? That should kind of push you outside of what you might traditionally do and just sort of force your brain to think about how to create an assignment that would be a little bit different than that, all right? And then I have some questions for you there. Think about what students would do. Think about what audience those students might be addressing. Think about the reflection that could go into them. We did this as a large group at the Effective Teacher Workshop this year. It was so much fun. People came up with the most amazing assignments. They were just things that you sat there and listened to and thought to yourself, I would do that. Like that's what I would go home at Thanksgiving and say, that is so cool. Just really neat things. So I think it's a really nice way of starting to think about how we connect those outcomes to what we do in our courses, and that provides that kind of signature assignment experience. So with that, just as a basic background, I'm interested in what you have to say about it. What do you think? Things that would work, not work, a process you like, don't like? What's your thought there?
I think if you had to pick something like the class you have no clue about,
Yeah,
it would force you to maybe contact somebody in that area and be like, what would you do?
absolutely,
And some of these, I don't even know what are the goals of any of these classes,
absolutely.
if I've never cross-collaborated with any of those professors.
Absolutely, and we did that, at the Effective Teacher Workshop, we did it in groups for exactly that reason. So you had people in your groups from multiple disciplines and worked on that, which worked super well, and then at Tuesday's workshop, or Wednesday's workshop, Wednesday's workshop, super great suggestion from Rosa, I believe, on getting together over the course of the semester with people and doing exactly that. Like, let's all bring our signature assignments together and talk about them. Talk about what would work, what wouldn't work. Amy Rice-Deutsch was also there, and she brought up the amazing point that, but what if I think it's cool and no one else in my class does? Like, the reality is I create things that are just rock star, and students look at me like, meh. So I think that's also a wonderful check on that, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's bring it to people outside of a subject area and have them go, I would love to learn that. That makes astronomy seem cool to me, or that makes mythology seem cool to me from a different perspective. So I think there's lots of collaborative stuff that would work really well with that. Yeah.
This topic is one of the focus areas in the new online Canvas area for
Nice.
faculty development
Nice.
so that this discussion can be ongoing. And she says nice, but she may not remember, she agreed to help moderate.
And it's still nice. Still good. Still all good. Okay, other thoughts there? Yes.
Well, I look at this and I think that I would try to overthink this, try to make it way too complicated. So was that addressed in the workshop or?
I think there is the potential for that.
Because I mean, signature assignment seems like
Right,
it's
exactly.
gotta be,
Yes, the heavens do not, the heavens don't have to part,
Okay.
unicorns don't have to run down the hall. Like that does not have to happen at the end of a signature assignment. So it doesn't have to be something that is, don't set yourself up for failure. Don't be like, if this is not like the most amazing thing ever, that is not necessary at all. I think truly, if you use the criteria of it can't be a test or a quiz, I think that does it. Like, I think as long as you are outside of that, you have met the idea of this is going to be pretty neat. And beyond that, I wouldn't worry about it being something that is gilded, right? I don't think it needs to have that level. Because you're right, you can totally overthink it. I do think it's best to start super simple and then with student feedback, modify as you go from semester to semester. Because I think students will say, this part, loved this. This part, no. And they'll give you a nice glimpse on that. So I would start with some basics and take some student feedback to modify over the years. Bill, no.
I think along with thinking of it as a signature assignment and maybe a culmination of things, you will, over the course of the semester, build to that thing. So I may have a signature assignment, but I'm probably going to have lots of groundwork to help my students get to that point of understanding and have been given an opportunity to understand, and if there's new things, they've explored them and practiced them, and that comes together in the signature assignment. So I kind of look at it as, this is the goal, this is the thing I'm targeting for them to participate in by the end of the semester, but I have a whole bunch of stuff built into the semester to help them to get to that thing they call the signature assignment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that provides a lot of framework for not sacrificing any content, which is key. Like no one is asking for an ounce of content to be sacrificed, but putting it into a frame that serves this objective as well. So I think that's awesome. We're getting close to out of time, so I did want to share with you, as I shared with the group on Wednesday, that when I did this is my anecdote that everyone can do this. When I did this in Salt Lake, I was in a group of people I didn't know, and already my boundaries are being pushed just a smidge. So I'm in a group of people I don't know, and then we roll the dice and we get our objective, and I'm doing fine, taking some deep breaths, I'm doing okay. We roll it again, and the course we get is human sexuality with people I don't know. And I'm like, I will still be okay. Things will be fine. I'll be fine. I'm okay. And then we roll it again, and the modality we get is kinesics.
Oh my.
Yes, exactly. And I think to myself, okay, I still will be fine. And I was, it was fine. We came up with a cool project and we made it out unscathed. So I offer that up as my anecdote that however uncomfortable you might be as this sort of moves forward, it can come out at the end in a great project. So the uncomfort is good. It will help you sort of process that. So we are really looking forward to having a semester and a year of conversations about signature assignments. So anytime you want to talk about them, call, because I love to talk about them. This is why people look at my assignments and go, Tiffany, that's not fun. And I go, yes it is! So,
Can you sign the sheet on your way out?
absolutely. Sounds